Hello and welcome to the Big Problems Little Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Barry Scott, and I'm a copywriter, marketer and environmentalist. I love the outdoors, grew up watching David Attenborough and wanted to be like Jane Goodall when I was older. There's still time, but right now I'm fortunate enough to work with lots of very smart people who are trying to make the world a better place in lots of different ways. The goal of this podcast is to shine a light on all of the little solutions out there to a lot of the big problems we're facing. Today we have Rune Kier Nielsen, who is an anthropologist, communicator, speechwriter and climate campaigner who's worked for the city of Copenhagen's mayors, a couple of them I believe, and the Danish Ministry of Climate and Energy and the Ministry for the Environment. He also led a public advocacy he led a public advocacy climate action at the United Nations Environment Programme. He's won 2 of the prestigious Cicero Speechwriting Awards and written for activists and idealists as part of the Danish climate movement and TEDx. Rune has also taught climate communications at high schools, colleges and universities, and more recently, kind of an extension of that work is the writing and publishing his book, Speaking on Climate, as a guide to speechwriting for a better future. So there we go. Hello. Good morning. How are you doing, Ren?
Thank you. I'm doing good. That was quite an introduction, Barry.
Well, it's an impressive CV that you've put together, so why not? Yes. And listen, I guess the one thing that I always like to ask is, well, there's kind of 2 things. One is how did you get into speechwriting? It's such a niche and unique thing to do, and also how did you end up focusing on climate? I guess maybe they're part of the same thing. I'll leave that to you to tell us how you got into all of this.
Yeah, it's of course a long story because it goes back many years, but I guess it really, for me and speechwriting started when I was studying. I was at university and doing my master's degree in cultural anthropology. As part of that, I was doing field work for 6 months or something in Brazil on the Black movement, Movimento Negro in Brazil, and I was interviewing activists and talking to them about, what changed for you, and when did it change, and what caused that change, what pushed you to this radical different identity that I saw them having, and they spoke about, assuming your identity. And what it really boils down to was that I was feeling like a detective that, I see the change,
Yeah.
but what was the cause of that change? And it led me back to speaking and storytelling, because they all spoke about, okay, so it took a while for me to change who I am and how I acted in the world, how I saw it, but it all started at this event where this guy or girl was standing on stage talking about their story, and it resonated.
So it must have been a very influential speech that they had given at that point in time. Exactly. To affect so many people.
Exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't, of course, the same speech that changed all of them, but it was different, and it had a lot of the same elements in it. You are gathered at a certain event, you are listening to somebody speaking on the stage, they are giving a personal story about how they changed. You are identifying with the frustrations they experienced, with the doubts they felt. You are sensing that something ought to be able to be different for you in the world, and that this may be it. So that's what they spoke about. Then they spoke about how they went home, and same old friends, same old family, same old colleagues. So it was hard to change anything because we are locked in our social networks. And when they then at some point said, okay, I need to do this because this is what feels right for me, then they had to distance themselves from family, from some of them from their religious beliefs, from their all these different social things that they needed to distance themselves from to find a new place in the world. So that was my introduction to the power of speechwriting, the power of storytelling. Um, and at that point, I didn't have any ideas that I was going to be a speechwriter. I was an
You
anthropologist. I
didn't
was
think,
just
right,
going,
I want to do this. That'll do
yeah,
me.
exactly. I had
Yeah.
no idea what that this was going to be something that would be a major part of my life.
But it
So I
left an
just,
impression strong enough, obviously. It left a really powerful impression on you too. Yeah.
yeah, it did. It did very much. It really opened my eyes to what communicating and talking to somebody in an audience can really do.
Mm.
That it commits people in a completely different way. So I got home to Denmark. I ended my masters. I got a job in the city administration. Kind of run of the mill, and then I started seeing that a lot of people, my colleagues, when the mayor was supposed to give a speech in their area of expertise, they said, "Oh, a speech. I don't have the time. I don't know what is it. How does it look? What's a good speech? What's a bad speech? Does he just want the fact sheet and he can just talk
Mm.
about it, or what? And I had that idea in my head. Okay, this is a powerful moment. He's gonna step up there, a public figure of authority,
Yeah.
talking to a large audience about something that matters to them. So my mind was going back to Brazil. And so eventually I started saying, well, don't worry about it. Give me a fact sheet. I'll write the speech for you. So
There you go.
eventually I started writing all the speeches in my department. And so
Yeah.
I became the you might call it
That
unofficial
became your new
speechwriter in the
job, was
beginning.
it? Whether that wasn't your title, but that was just
Yeah,
what you did from then on. Yeah,
yeah, because nobody else
yeah.
wanted to, and I enjoyed it. So eventually,
Yeah.
more and more speeches, piled up on my desk, and it became, a majority of my work
Yeah.
life. That those speeches, um, and then those speeches were more, actually more in line with what I'd experienced in Brazil, because they were about, integration, ethnic diversity, how do we create a good city for everybody,
Yeah.
regardless
Yeah.
where they're from, regardless what they look like.
Yeah. And building community for all different types of people, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Mm.
creating that movement, that narrative that spurs a movement about how can we do this better and differently,
Mm.
for everybody. But eventually, and this is where we come into the climate aspect of it.
Yes.
Uh, Eventually, I have my girlfriend at the time. We got our daughter in 2009.
Mm.
2009 was also the year of COP15 in Copenhagen, which was a big flop. Didn't do anything good, really. Might have laid some groundwork, but it was a massive disappointment. And
Yeah.
I remember vividly standing there with my little girl on my arm. She was, 6 months old at the time of the COP, and just feeling, okay, I I I was so hopeful at that point. We had the slogan Copenhagen, uh,
Yeah.
and I really, oh, they're going to do it now. I believe in these people. They can do it. And I was standing there with my little girl, and I just, we're going to make the world safe for you. It's going to be a good one, good future for you. And when I saw that they failed miserably, there was also this sense of responsibility in me
Yes.
as a father that, okay, Rune, you can't just be standing on the sidelines anymore. You need to get involved.
Yeah.
So when the job opened as the sole speechwriter for the Danish government in areas of climate, energy, and buildings, I said, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to apply for that one, and I got
That's
it.
it. Great.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my way in. I've been writing
Yeah.
speeches. I've been narratives, creative movements, storytelling. That's what the
Yeah.
climate needs, and
Yes.
they agreed. So that was my way to speech writing and into the climate sphere. And then of course I've broadened it out like your extensive introduction highlighted. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic because I think everybody has their own little unique story of how they get to that stage, and I think actually children often plays a part in that. or certainly plays a part in heightening the urgency to get it done for this reason. So yeah, I can completely understand that. Um, and look, so you've written a book which also talks to children, correct? It's mostly directed at children, or
It's
tell me
written.
how that sort of came about.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that started actually all the way back to that first government speechwriting gig that um I saw that, the minister had me, a professional speechwriter, and all the other government ministers had other speechwriters, so they were very well equipped to talk about climate. But they also needed a push because governments, political inertia, it's a slow process, and they needed somebody to push them, and that was a lot of young people, the Danish climate movement, that filled that role.
Yeah.
Yet they didn't have the same help in
Yes.
speech writing as the
They
people in
needed the right
power
words
had.
to help push everybody else along.
Exactly,
Yeah.
they had the knowledge.
Yeah.
They know the IPCC reports inside out better than I do,
Mm.
and I've worked with them. and they had the dedication, the sheer willpower, but
Yes.
not necessarily the communication chops, the
Yeah.
rhetorical skills.
Yes.
And so I started working with them. I started working with different groups of young people who wanted to talk about this, just on a freelance volunteer basis, really. And I saw the need that they had for something that didn't require a master's degree in rhetoric or knowledge of ancient Greece, but could help them into the communication field through what they were dedicated to, which was climate. And so
Yeah.
the idea started to form in my head. But it was not until much later that I started actually putting it into words and started finding a way to really say it. Um, it took a lot of workshops with these young people where I tried to teach them climate communication and how to
Yes.
speak up in this regard. And it led me to a realization that they were often seeing their greatest strengths as obstacles. It goes back to the point you made about children and what that does to us, because they
Mm.
were saying, I'm too dedicated I'm too worked up, emotional about climate. I can't speak about that. People will think I'm crazy. Or, I'm anxious about speaking up anyway, so this will be a
This
catastrophe.
won't work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all have that feeling occasionally.
Mm.
But they didn't see the fact that they, as young people, spoke from a different perspective.
Yes.
Um, from the perspective that we might disagree on climate science. Is it 50 gigatons or is it 55? What exactly are the chemical processes involved in the transition? All these stuff.
I
We
think when
might
you get
disagree on
into
that.
I think when you get into one of these discussions over science, then
Yeah,
it's
you're lost. You're
yeah.
lost. That doesn't persuade people, unless maybe
Mm.
you are a dedicated scientist or something. But the majority of people are not persuaded by that.
Yes.
But they are persuaded by care and love. And
Mm.
so I this happened after I wrote the book, but it was it has a nice picture to it. I was working with this marketing campaign using advertisement for climate action in UNEP, UN Environment Program, and I asked this guy, he was like 60, what you have this high ranking position within advertising. Why are you working on climate all of a sudden? What what
Mm.
what brought that about? Kind of the same curiosity as back in my field work in Brazil. So he
Yeah.
said, well, I've always known climate was happening and it was bad and something needed to be done. I never really saw it as my task until my daughter sat me down at the dinner table and said, Dad, I'm so extremely concerned about the future. I'm gonna become a vegan, and I'm gonna join Fridays for Future because I need to do something. No science, no policy,
Yeah.
no realism. Just somebody you care about, concerned about climate and what can they
Mm.
do. And as a parent or as a friend, you react to that. So that's what I see as something that we need to get back into. That people are concerned, people are scared, and as somebody in power or an older generation, we need to respond to that, and we will. But we might not respond with political rhetoric, and we might not respond to science, but just sitting down with somebody and kind of seeing their world through their
Yeah.
eyes,
Yeah.
I think is
Well,
what
certainly
we are
respond
about.
to another human being, just making a plea almost. In fact, that's one of the chapters in your book, is it not? It's just emotion. Don't be
Yeah,
afraid of the emotion of the situation, which I think is really, you know, very powerful.
yeah, and I think that is the first chapter, because I saw it as
Mm.
the major obstacle for most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, not realizing that they don't need to quote the IPCC report, page
Yes.
16.
In fact, please don't.
Yeah,
Please don't.
exactly.
Yeah.
They don't need that. They can just
Yes.
keep it on their turf,
Yeah.
and that would be more powerful, because if we wanted to know the IPCC report, we would read the IPCC report. Um, so yeah, definitely, that is a major thing for many people to understand, that we are not necessarily looking for you to explain the science to us. We're looking to you to explain what does the world look like for
Yeah.
you.
It does seem almost a shame that as adults we have to write a book to help children give the boot up the arse that we all need to actually do something about this, isn't it? It just seems like we shouldn't have to do that, and yet, that's what you've had to go ahead and do. Um,
Hoping that the book is for non-rhetoric skilled people. So if you know rhetoric,
yeah,
there's going to be a lot of stuff in it that you know already. Um, but I have gotten feedback from very skilled, high level people saying, I needed that wake up call, Rune. I needed
yes,
to realize that. So it's
yeah,
not just for young people. And I agree, putting the pressure, the burden of the world, saying, it's too late for us. Here you go, baby.
mm,
That's just not,
yes,
that's you shouldn't do that. We should be able, as the adult generation, to safeguard the future of our kids. It
yeah,
shouldn't be left to them. It shouldn't be left to anybody, really.
no.
I totally agree with that.
Mm. So if there's any young folks listening here, what is there? And we can give them the details. The book is speaking on climate, and the
Mm.
details will be underneath. We'll put that on at the end. But if somebody's listening just now, are there would you have sort of top two or three things that you would say if you're going to try and talk to somebody to try and persuade somebody in power to actually do something about these situations? What would be your top three tips on what to do? How should they go about it?
Yeah, I think the top things, if you are speaking to somebody in power, then most of us dedicated to climate action are somewhat disillusioned by the political system as
To
a
say the
whole.
least.
Yeah, to
To
say
say
the
the
least.
least. But it goes like
Um,
this. It's ups
yeah,
and downs. It's ups and downs.
it is, and we
Yeah.
we we continuously need to remember that decisions are made around a table, and there's gonna be some people we disagree with around that table, and there will likely also be somebody around that table who agrees with us, who wants radical, urgent action at a massive scale. And
Mm,
what we need to do when speaking to these people is not alienate that those people we agree with.
mm,
Don't kill your allies, um, and we need to help them negotiate better. So that's so if you are standing, at a protest march or something, just yelling at all the corrupt politicians, that's not helping.
Yes,
That's not
yes.
helping. That's just
Oh,
making
it
them
might
all
make you
more
feel
angry.
better
And
temporarily. Might make you feel better for a little while.
yeah, it will make you feel
Yeah,
better. It might get a massive
yeah, yeah.
applause, but it will not push
Mm.
for action.
Yes,
That's where we need much more to think the situation through. What will help at that table? Sure, some numbers, but they most likely have them. But a massive surge of support for action that will make a difference.
mm.
Emotions are the bed and the what do you call it, bread and butter of political decision making. So if you
Yeah,
stand up there at the protest march, if that's where you are, and you make sure that people know how concerned you are, give them another perspective on the world, I think that will change much more on the table, much more in terms of action. And really acknowledge that there's so much that needs to be done. It's a massive task, and we might not
yes,
get it, all of it, in time. But the more we get, the better. And that's
yeah,
a lousy statement to make when we're at where we are, but we need to make sure that there are still victories, there are still accomplishments being happening around here. So making sure that we see that every fraction of a degree matters in this regard, and
yes,
we need to push that message along, and that goes for the politicians in their action, but it also goes for the audience in front of you. I was at a protest march in Denmark, while writing the book, actually, and the guy standing up was saying, I have no job, I am a full-time activist, you should be too. If you're not doing it right. And I was then, okay, so I took time away from my work during this lunch hour protest demonstration to come here and
mm.
show support, but I'm not good enough.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
making sure that everybody can contribute.
So don't alienate parts of your audience, really. I mean,
Don't
yeah, yeah,
alienate.
very
Yeah,
much so.
make sure that they can see themselves and their actions as meaningful, and
Yes,
that they are a direct consequence of their values. That's what's most important. If we're saying, international solidarity, and that's the way to climate, well, we're not going to get the right wings on board with that. So maybe we should make sure that we're not alienating the audience nor the people we're trying to influence.
I really like that concept of that you've got all these people around the table, however many
Yeah,
there are, and there's some who don't want to do what you do, but there's probably a couple there who actually do.
yeah,
And there was a podcast I listened to the other week. It was a scientist. It was on BBC, and it was a little 20-minute piece. And the scientist woman, whose name I've forgotten at the moment, and she said this brilliant wee thing, and I thought, oh, that's great. I love that. And she said, what I do is I make it easier for people to do the right thing. And I just thought, oh, that's great. I really like that. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it easier for people to do that. Not annoy people, not pressure or push them into doing, you must do this, you must do that. Just make it a wee bit easier for them to do the right thing. I think that's fantastic.
and it's all part of how you phrase it. I'm not, and that this is important to me. I'm not arguing that you should, under any circumstances, level out how you see the world, level out the
Yeah.
urgency, make it
Mm.
more soft and easy to digest. That's not what I'm arguing here. Uh, I'm arguing that you should indeed spell out what the world looks like for you in
Yeah.
the terms and words and phrases, framings that capture that in the best possible way. Don't use standard science talk or political talk that might have different associations. Use your own, but make sure it fits.
Yeah.
Um, and then just keep it on you, because the most powerful thing, and this goes right back to Brazil,
Hmm.
The most powerful thing is that somebody's standing up there explaining what does the world look like to them, and you in the audience identifying, not being told what the world is like, identifying with how the world looks like to somebody else. That's the
Yeah.
most powerful thing.
So what? Use your own language. Try and tell it from your perspective, and don't alienate anybody as well. These are all great ways and great lessons. It's kind of good for all sorts of communications in life, really, isn't it? I suppose. Don't
Yeah,
alienate people if you're trying to ask them to do something for you. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
and that's I wrote this book on speech writing specifically, public speaking,
yeah,
speech writing for climate. But I am being told that it goes for all kind of climate communication and most other kinds of communication, really, because some young I was giving training at this high school, and they were coming up to me saying, is this only climate? Because I really feel I can use a lot of it for the work I'm doing on the LGBT movement,
yeah.
or the gender equality movement, which is my thing. So these young people are coming up to me saying that. So that's definitely something. Another
Yeah.
person was actually a podcast I was on was saying, well, I don't see your book as a speaking from a stage book. I see it as the lead up to climate conversations in general, which is also something that I really resonates with my mind, because I do believe that unless we start conversations with our speeches and think about that next step, what are, if you're listening to my speech, what are you going to go home and talk to the wife about?
What piece of it will you take away and then distribute
Exactly.
to other people as well? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
unless if we're not thinking about that, then it's likely that the speech will end with the final punctuation mark and me or you exiting the stage, and they're going to move on to the next one.
And then that's it. There's nothing else that
That's
lives
it.
on after that. Yeah,
Yeah. We really need
yeah.
to think about what does people need to know? What do they need to remember to start these conversations? And in climate communication, I read somewhere that 80% of the global population are very concerned about the state of the climate and the future we're going to hand over or live in a moment. Um, and 2/3 of young people never talk to anybody about this,
Mm.
or climate
Yeah.
silence. So in between those two numbers, it's like a third of young people are extremely concerned about climate and their future, their life on Earth, and they never talk to anybody about it.
That doesn't sound like a very healthy situation, does it?
That's the
Yeah,
direct
yeah,
path to climate
yeah,
anxiety and
yeah.
to inaction,
Yeah.
because it's community that creates action, whether it's communities to
Yes.
actually push for political action, or it's community to restore the mangroves in my local coastline,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. That's where the change happens. So we really
Because
need
those
to
little
start those
conversations as
together.
well, I find, like when I personally feel the anxiety getting a wee bit higher, there's a few people that I can just have a chat to, and even just having that conversation, it just sort of lessens it a wee bit. I think it certainly does help. Um, And I think it's important to do that when you work in this space, is to try and have a sort of get out every now and again to give yourself a break. So yeah, I think that's definitely worthwhile.
Definitely need that. And when once you see these puzzle bits lying on the table, so young people are concerned. Majority of young people are concerned, but have nobody to talk to. But hey, what we need the most are them talking to the older generation. That's what creates the change. Ah, we really need to start these conversations so young people, or us as well, don't feel
Mm,
all alone, and we can do
yeah.
something together that will have an impact. So,
And
so we
look, and your
just
book helps people, really helps people to do that. And also, like I work in climate comms quite a bit
yeah,
as well,
yeah,
more and more recently. And there was bits in there that I picked up that I learned which I didn't know as well, about the history of certain things, which um, explained kind of why we are where we are. And I think, there's various situations and things that have happened in the past which we have now solved. And when you see these things, you know, it does give you a bit more faith and hope that we can eventually get there with this problem too. It just might take a while. So I think that does also help. And I found it very useful from that perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I completely agree with you. I think the climate movement and a lot of us climate communicators have had a too narrow focus on the future. We're talking about uh, 2050, 2100, in 100 years, within the next millennium, all these different targets that are set in the future. And when we're then saying, okay, so this is the most existential threat crisis ever seized by man. We have it's the biggest in the history of Homo sapiens. Uh, that's effectively cutting us off from the past, which holds so many lessons about what works and what doesn't,
Yeah.
and hope in terms of what can change and that we can change.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tell the story about the hole in the ozone layer that is on the mend because of multilateral agreements, which is what we need in climate right now. And so there is so much that we need to think about that. How do we give hope to people? Not just to give hope, because we need despair as well. We're in a despairing situation, but but hope in the active sense that we
Yes.
can do something, we will do something, we're going out and doing something. That's
You know what, Rune? I think that's an excellent place to sort of just finish it off there. And if you wanted anybody to do one thing after this chat, what would that one thing? We don't want it to finish at the full stop. I think perhaps people should buy your book or should go out there or talk to their parents. Or what would be the one thing that you want to do people to do then after listening to this?
open up the climate conversation. Sit down
There
at the
you go.
dinner table, talk to your friends, go to the cantina at work, wherever your life is centered and with
Yeah.
people, start talking about climate. Your friends, your family, your network might be extremely concerned and just need somebody to talk to. And when you talk, you can start acting together.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. Well, listen, thank you very much, Rune. I'll get ready with the end of my day. You can get yours started. And listen, thanks again. Thanks very much for your time. That was wonderful. I loved reading the book. I thought it was great. Picked lots of bits and pieces up in that as well. So keep in touch and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry.
Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to share these little solutions far and wide.